Hey everyone, welcome to r/malicious compliance, where people tend to get exactly what they deserve. I'm Uncle Reddit, and have I got some stories for you.
I got fired for going to work. On mobile, so apologies for formatting. A few years ago, I worked at a kiosk in a local shopping center, Mall for Americans. Don't mean for that to sound snarky, some people just don't know. That applied phone protectors to phones. These protectors were absolute garbage for the price they were asking. If I recall, the iPhone X came out the Christmas before I started, and it was £150 to get it applied. So I wasn't all that keen about aggressively pushing the product. My supervisor, who was a friend of a friend, we'll call him Alex, was tasked to write up a work rota every Monday for the next week. This is important because I had asked Alex if I could have 4 days off, but make up for them later as I was planning to go on holiday and propose to my fiancée. To which he spoke with everyone else to make sure they were okay working more days in a row, if it meant that they got off more days as I caught up on my hours. One important note is that Alex would have to send the rota to the owner of the company, we'll call him Randy, for verification, and an hour check as legally we weren't allowed to work over a certain amount of hours. So Randy accepts the hours and the fact that I had days off, but make up for them right after I get back, which I did agree to, but it was absolute heck. Because I was working from 9 to 5, doing double shift to make up the hours I had lost in high temperatures, heat guns on full blast, and a black hoodie, as it was part of the uniform, and nothing to drink or eat because it was against the rules to eat or drink at the kiosk. Looking back on it, I wasn't even allowed to have lunch during that week. Along comes the weekend, and all of my fiancé and I, close friends, want to go out drinking to celebrate the engagement. And considering the heckish week of work I'd had, I was down. It gets to about 3 a.m. and I've been drinking heavily since around 7 p.m. and I received a phone call from Randy demanding that I work the next day. Which means I would have worked more hours than I was legally allowed to do, which wasn't even on the rota. I explained to Randy that I'm extremely drunk and in no fit state to be going into work. There had been times someone had come into work after smoking a bit, but that was an entirely new realm. Randy then tells me he doesn't care how drunk I am, and if I keep drinking, he just wants me at the kiosk at 9 a.m. I continued drinking throughout the night because I wasn't in the right mindset to be making smart decisions, but I remember clearly that Randy wants me at the kiosk for 9 a.m. I get to the kiosk at 9, and Alex is already there with everything set up, and can see that I am clearly drunk, and sits me down while he calls Randy, asking why I'm telling Alex that I'm meant to be there at 9 a.m., which I just kept muttering. Randy is furious that I turned up for work drunk and basically demands that I'm fired immediately, which Alex refuses to do because technically I hadn't done anything wrong. The next day, I was rotated for it. I walk up to the kiosk and Randy is there and fires me on the spot for yesterday, which he actually wasn't allowed to do because all I had done was fulfill his request. I ended up with a huge payoff because, as it turns out, you can't fire someone for following orders, provided you haven't broken the law. So what do you think? Do you think OP should have shown up drunk like that, or do you think he should have called back and explained the situation over again? Do you think the boss was wrong? Do you think he was wrong? Let me know down in the comments. I stopped refilling my cup. So I work at a pizza place that partnered with a brewery to form one restaurant. You go to the bar in front, order your beer and pizza, and then the ticket prints out in our kitchen, which is in the back. Also important to know is that I'm a big guy, 6'3" easily, almost 300 pounds. So the bar and the pizza place have separate chains of command, but we do share tip jars and a drink supply. So when you get dehydrated from playing next to the 600-degree oven, you walk across the tap room and fill up your cup with ice and soda or water. Now, I like to be a nice guy and grab a tray, getting everyone else a drink when I go up. But I am also very thirsty sometimes, so I will often need 2 to 3 cups of water. The solution, of course, is to drink as I fill someone else's cup, then refill mine, basically minimizing the time I spend behind the bar and not making pizzas. Of course, the bar boss doesn't like that. He thinks I obstruct the way for way too long when I do change drinks. So he complained to the kitchen supervisor, who, reluctantly, told me I could no longer stand behind the bar and rehydrate when the bar was busy. This, of course, only applied to me. I told my supervisor the natural plan. If I couldn't drink behind the bar, I would have to make multiple trips. So a week or two later, the situation came up. I was thirsty, the restaurant was busy, and the complaining supervisor was behind the bar. I made about 3 trips, getting only water. Soda would have cost the restaurant money and pack on unnecessary calories. Each time I would start drinking and walking as soon as the tap went off, then turn around when I finished my cup. This caused far more behind the bar disruption than filling a glass a few times. After all, the tap was far away from the entrance. The kitchen supervisor was perfectly happy with this. I did it a few more times that night. I made my point. I haven't done either since, instead filling up a cup with ice and drinking the off-tasting kitchen sink water. Fallout is important. Bar supervisor complained to the kitchen big boss, who announced a plan to buy a water cooler for the kitchen. The kitchen supervisor joked that he reserved the right to put me in charge of filling it. I get it. I'm a big guy myself. I understand. You get worked up, you get hot. You're going to take more than just one little drink. And, there's no sense in going back and forth 8 times when you're trying to be productive and place is busy. You got to fill up. Cheers. Can't boss me around anymore. About 1.5 years ago, I worked at a bar-type place that was pretty small but got really busy at night. And besides the 2 owners, there was only me and one other worker who was considered the manager. Let's call him Kyle. I was paid $10 an hour and Kyle was paid $15 an hour, which didn't really make much sense because, for the most part, I did all the work. I served customers, ran the register, stocked and kept track of what we need, cleaned the entire building at the end of the night, and also cleaned the parking lot of the building since our customers would often litter all over the place. Kyle really just sat in the back and made whatever orders me or the mayors gave him. We were open from noon to 2 a.m. every day. Important. Kyle and I worked from 6 or 7 p.m. to 2 or 3 a.m. depending on how busy we were. He would work the entire shift if the owners had something to do that day. Now, Kyle was an absolute terror to work with. He was always bossing me around and telling me something had to be done when I was already extremely busy. Always saying something wasn't done right, or if I had a little extra free time, he would try to put some of his workload on me. Or if the owners let me have a good break, he would say I'm slacking off. Basically just constantly messing with me and making me mad. I consider myself to have great customer service, so I would never let it get to me while I was at work and always tried my best not to get mad. Now, the owners often go on vacation a few times a year. This time they were going on vacation together for a week, and Kyle was scheduled to work every shift from open to close. No problem for him since he's done it before. One of the owners also told us his brother would be coming in to watch over things, but he didn't really know how to run the place or make anything, so one of us were to always be there to make sure everything is good. Kyle and I both had no problems with the plan, and we spent that night getting everything prepared for when the owners would be gone. Next day comes around and I get a call at 11:30 a.m. from the owner's brother. He asks where Kyle is and says he isn't answering the phone. I call and get a hold of him, and he can't come in for some unknown reason. Okay, whatever. I'll cover your shift. I get ready, go into work, and cover his shift. I was still a little new to making everything, so it took me some time to get the hang of it, but after a few hours, everything went smoothly, especially since our day people were regulars and all knew me. By the end of the night, I had worked 14 hours and was extremely exhausted, so I decided to just sleep in my car and drive home when I woke up. Well, of course, I wake up the next morning and Kyle calls me saying he can't come in again. I give the owner's brother a heads up and go home to get ready for work again. Day 3 rolls around and of course, Kyle can't come in again. By this point, I was beyond peeved. I have my own life and I have things that I actually want to do besides just work and sleep. I was peeved for a little bit until I realized what I can get out of this if I just work the entire week for him. I call Kyle back and ask why he can't work. He didn't give an answer, of course. And then I tell him that if he has something going on, I can cover the rest of the week for him no problem. So we won't blow up his phone anymore, and he had no problem letting me. I told the owner's brother what the new plan was, and while he was mad at Kyle, he said he would take my side on the whole thing when his brother came home. So for the rest of the week, I came in every day at 11:30 a.m. and worked until 2 or 3 a.m. The owner's brother would come in and help out wherever he could, and would run the register for me when we were extremely busy. The week ended up going great. Me and him never fell behind on work even when it got busy. The owner's brother also realized that having a manager was completely pointless, since I did almost all the work in the first place, and for $5 less. The managers come back, and guess who finally shows up for work? Kyle. He comes in acting like he did what he was supposed to and that everything went as planned, and I went along with it during the shift, and decided to keep my comments to myself for the end of the night. And once closing time came around, I let everything loose, and the owner's brother was right there to back everything up for me. They were both so surprised because he had never done anything like that before. Now, I was only doing all this because for that week, I would have gotten a really hefty paycheck because I ended up working over 90 hours. We were paid under the table. The owners were quite generous and ended up paying me for all the hours at the $15 an hour rate, which I didn't expect but really enjoyed. Then they took it a step further because of the brothers' comments. Kyle ended up getting his butt handed to him and was fired that night, and he didn't make a single penny for the entire week. Not too long after, they hired a new guy at the same rate as me and also stripped the manager position. So nobody working there had any control over me except for the owners, who now had a new respect for me and just let me do my own thing. I also proved to them that I'm able to work a full shift and got as many hours as I wanted. So what do you guys think? Do you like hourly or salary better? I used to love hourly, so that way when I got overtime, my checks would be fantastic. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. The school nurse is too busy to see sick kids? Don't worry, I can handle it. Too long didn't read at bottom. This is not a crazy example of malicious compliance, but it made me very happy, so I decided to post. No children were harmed in this malicious compliance. Apologies, I'm on mobile. English is my first language. This happened today. I am a substitute teacher. Today I was covering a first grade class. I had not been to this particular school before, but I have covered first grade previously. When I gathered the class in the morning, I realized that every single child was coughing, sneezing, and had a runny nose. 3 kids were visibly sicker than the rest. One just looked very ill. Another felt like she had a fever, my assessment. The third was coughing so hard he was gagging. Let's call the cougher Joe. I sent all 3 to the nurse at different times, within the first 60 minutes of the day. With the last student, I included a note explaining that the entire class was ill, and the 3 I sent were the sickest. I essentially apologized for having a sick class and having students that needed to be evaluated. Of the 3, 1 was sent home with a fever. The other 2, one being Joe, were sent back to class. About an hour after the last student returned, one of the administrators came to my class. She asks me why I'm sending so many students to the nurse. She chastises me for letting the students take advantage of me. I try to explain the situation for each student, but she cuts me off and tells me that the nurse is too busy today and there's nothing the nurse can do for them anyway. I am told I can't send any more students to the nurse. Fine. Now the malicious compliance. Lunchtime. I'm picking up the class from the cafeteria when I realize Joe is crying. He tells me that he started coughing again and that he vomited a little on his pants. He feels fine now, but he's upset because the other kids were making fun of him. I chastise the class for making fun of him and promise to help Joe clean up once we get to the classroom. In the middle of this interaction, the same administrator from before sees what's happening and comes over to investigate. Admin: what's going on here? Why is Joe crying? Me: explains what happened. I start to lead the students back to class. Admin: are you going to send Joe to the nurse? Me: not right now. He's feeling better. I know the nurse is busy. I can handle this. Admin looks visibly distressed, but doesn't say anything else. Once we got back to class, I get Joe cleaned up. He admitted that another kid gave him flaming hot Cheetos, and those made him cough. He's happy now and participating in class without any issues. About 15 minutes after returning to the room, there's a knock on the door. It's the nurse. She pulls Joe out to speak to him. I don't know what was said, but Joe returned soon after. The nurse did not say one word to me. Oh well, I guess she wasn't too busy after all. Too long didn't read. I get reprimanded for sending sick kids to the nurse and told not to send anyone else. Nurse then has to come to my classroom to deal with a sick kid. Edit. Thank you, kind stranger, for my first gold, and thank you everyone for your comments. I didn't expect so many people to relate to my experience. Yep, when they're sick, they're sick. You gotta figure it out somehow, and the nurse is the one that evaluates them, so if they all seem sick, she's gotta see them all. Let me know what your thoughts are.